one. The Friday numbers are in, and they are sad. They are bad. They are dreadful. If I'm TNT, Warner Bros., they gotta feel had at this point. Napheesa, Collier, Breanna, Stewart, the hubby, they come to Warner Bros. Hey, we got this new 3-on-3 league that we're gonna start. TNT, is Caitlin Clark gonna be in there? Oh yeah, Caitlin Clark, oh yeah.
So that sound you just heard represents a league that's completely falling apart. Friday's ratings came in, and if you're Breanna Stewart or Napheesa Collier, those numbers should make your stomach drop, because Unrivaled isn't just struggling in year 2. It's in total freefall. The executives at TNT Warner Brothers, who cut the checks for this whole experiment, are probably sitting in meetings right now, realizing they bought something that was never real. Here's what's actually going down. Week 1 of the second season posted terrible numbers. Week 2 somehow got even uglier, and when Friday's data finally arrived, it proved what everyone could see, but nobody wanted to admit. Take Caitlin Clark out of the equation, and this league has 0 audience.
They're gonna get better. Please like the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Needless to say, the ratings have not been better. Friday's ratings come out. Damn, 17 million for the college football playoff. But we scroll all the way down that screen, and you see Unrivaled. Breeze versus Hive. 30,000 viewers in the 18 to 49 demographic, with a total of 110,000.
Check out these numbers one more time. Breeze versus Mist managed to pull 30,000 viewers in that crucial 18 to 49 demo. Total people watching? 110,000. Vinyl against Rose played out the exact same way. 30,000 in the demo, 100,000 total eyeballs. Now here's what makes this absolutely brutal. Those exact same Friday slots last year were pulling 90,000 in the key demographic and 270,000 total viewers. We're talking about a 60% crash in the demo and a 63% drop overall. In just 12 months for a league that's supposed to be gaining steam. And before anyone starts talking about competition, let's shut that down right now. Sure, the college football playoff was happening at the same time, but here's what's real. Those are totally different viewer bases. Nobody planned their evening around Unrivaled, then suddenly jumped ship to Oregon versus Indiana. That's just not the reality of how people watch sports.
Okay. Breeze versus the Hive. The Hive, Kelsey Mitchell, and isn't Enrique on that team, and somebody else on that team? Okay. Folks, do you want to know how bad that Breeze versus Hive game was? I didn't watch. Of course I didn't watch. Breeze Hive were a combined 1 for 26 from 3. You read that correctly. A combined 1 for 26.
Here's what actually makes sense, though. Oregon absolutely destroyed Indiana so badly that by halftime, most people were looking for something else to watch. Unrivaled was sitting right there on TNT featuring professional athletes playing basketball. But they still couldn't grab viewers who were literally fleeing from a boring blowout. That should tell you everything you need to know about what they're putting on screen. When you can't even pull in sports fans who are actively channel surfing because their first choice became unwatchable, you're not dealing with a marketing issue. You're dealing with a basic entertainment problem. Now let's dig into the sales pitch that convinced TNT to write checks in the first place. Based on what we're hearing from multiple sources, when Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier walked into those Warner Brothers Discovery offices with this concept, the entire conversation revolved around star power, and the biggest name they kept mentioning was Caitlin Clark.
30,000. Oh Lord. And before I even hear complaints, not by you guys, but from the masses, the college football playoff audience, they don't give a fuck about Unrivaled. So before people say, oh, of course the ratings are going to be down, the college football playoffs are on. Dude, nobody said, oh man, I would really love to watch Unrivaled today, but the college football playoffs are... No. Completely two different demographics, two different types of people. Stop. Cut it out. Shout out to Joey Gladstone. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. Maybe 50 people said that to themselves.
Put yourself in those executive chairs for a second. Someone's pitching you a brand new 3-on-3 women's basketball league. It's going to run during January and February, which is basically the sports wasteland. The people founding it are legit WNBA stars, so it has credibility, and they're telling you Caitlin Clark is going to be involved. Obviously, you signed that deal. Caitlin Clark just spent months turning women's college basketball into appointment television. She's literally the only player who can take a game from 300,000 viewers to 3 million viewers consistently. So you cut the check expecting her to be the centerpiece. Season 1 launches. No Caitlin Clark anywhere to be found. Maybe she needed recovery time after her insane college run, but you've still got Sabrina Ionescu and Angel Reese, so there's legitimate star power. The ratings come in mediocre, but workable for a first-year experiment. You convince yourself growth is coming. Season 2 planning starts up. Still no Caitlin Clark on the horizon. Also no Aja Wilson, who's probably the second biggest ratings driver in women's basketball. No Paige Buckers. No Sophie Cunningham. Then Sabrina Ionescu backs out completely. Angel Reese decides she's got better ways to spend her time.
Breanna Stewart talking about the pathetic ratings. Quote, obviously, we want them to be consistently high no matter if we play on Friday or Saturday, Sunday or Monday. And know that we have a space on our own here and in the League of Sports. People aren't typically used to seeing women's professional basketball at this time unless you're watching EuroLeague or something like that, so ratings is a huge one. Here's a news flash.
Now you're stuck in boardroom meetings staring at a product that looks absolutely nothing like what you thought you were purchasing. The star power you paid for is completely missing. The ratings aren't just disappointing. They're in complete collapse mode, and you're locked into broadcast deals for a league that couldn't draw a crowd at a free barbecue. But hold on, because it gets so much worse than just embarrassing ratings. The actual basketball they're playing out there is painful to watch. In Friday's game between Breeze and Mist, both teams combined shot 1 for 26 from three-point range. Read that again. 1 successful three-pointer out of 26 attempts between both squads. That's not professional-level basketball. That's weekend pickup games at your local gym, and viewers can absolutely tell the difference.
Quote, obviously, we want them to be consistently high no matter if we play on Friday or Saturday, Sunday or Monday. And know that we have a space on our own here and in the League of Sports. People aren't typically used to seeing women's professional basketball at this time unless you're watching EuroLeague or something like that, so ratings is a huge one. Here's a news flash. Here's a news flash. People just still aren't used to watching women's basketball. Guilty. Guilty for spilling the beans. Sorry, someone had to say it. People aren't used to it. It's not a habit. When Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark, and that league is still going on. Okay, let me pay attention a little bit. But it's not a habit. It's not a habit. The WNBA season starts here for casual fans? It ain't no habit. Cut it out, Bree.
Now Breanna Stewart is out there trying to put lipstick on this disaster. She's telling reporters that audiences aren't used to seeing women's professional basketball during this time of year, unless they're watching EuroLeague. That quote right there exposes the complete fantasy world these people are living in. Breanna, nobody is watching EuroLeague. That's not something regular American sports fans do ever. You can't blame terrible ratings on viewing patterns that don't actually exist. The issue isn't that people need time to adjust to women's basketball in January. The issue is that people have zero interest in watching women's basketball without the specific players who make it worth their time. This isn't about creating new habits. When Caitlin Clark took the court, games became must-see TV immediately. No adjustment period required. She didn't need multiple seasons for people to warm up to watching her. Audiences appeared instantly because what she was doing was genuinely compelling. Unrivaled isn't compelling, and no amount of time is going to fix that without the players people actually care about seeing.
But Unrivaled hit the news this weekend. And not for anything good either. Just a little thing I got for you. A South Florida physician assistant was arrested for trespassing after refusing to leave an Unrivaled basketball event in Medley. allegedly offered a police officer up to $5,000 to drop the charges and was found with suspected cocaine. Damn, you need some cocaine to get through these Unrivaled games? Damn. You need a little pick me up to get through it. They're that boring, huh?
And just to make this whole situation even more ridiculous, Unrivaled managed to make headlines this weekend for completely wrong reasons. Some physician assistant from South Florida got arrested for trespassing at an Unrivaled event in Medley after refusing to leave the venue. This person allegedly tried to bribe a police officer $5,000 to drop the charges. When they got searched, police found what they suspected was cocaine. Now, I'm not saying this reflects directly on the league itself, but it's pretty hilarious that someone apparently needed illegal substances just to get through an Unrivaled game. The basketball is so mind-numbingly boring that fans are showing up high just to stay awake. That's literally where we are with this league. The ratings are catastrophic. The basketball is unwatchable. The promised star power never showed up. And the few people who do attend are getting busted with drugs. So let's break down exactly how everything went sideways here and why this matters for women's basketball going forward. Because this isn't just about one failed league. This is about the massive misunderstanding that's been killing women's sports marketing for years. The entire pitch for Unrivaled was built on something that wasn't true. Maybe not intentional fraud, but definitely a complete misreading of what actually drives interest in women's basketball. The founders believed that putting professional players in a slick league with high production values and major network coverage would automatically bring audiences. They thought the problem with women's basketball was access and presentation, not the actual product being offered. That's wrong. Completely demonstrably wrong. And these ratings prove it beyond any doubt. Here's what actually creates viewership in women's basketball. Individual superstars with magnetic personalities and incredible skills that casual fans want to watch no matter what uniform they're wearing. Caitlin Clark is the perfect example. When she plays, people tune in, doesn't matter if it's Iowa versus Northwestern on some random Tuesday or the WNBA championship. The audience follows her specifically, not the concept. Aja Wilson has that magnetism to some degree. Paige Beckers is building it. Angel Reese had it for a while before she got hurt, and then decided not to join Unrivaled's second season. Sabrina Ionescu was developing it, but then she opted out too. Without those specific individuals, you're left with very skilled basketball players that the general public doesn't recognize and doesn't care about. And that's not enough to build any kind of audience. It never has been. The WNBA figured this out the hard way. In 2024, the league had its most successful season ever for ratings and ticket sales. But when you actually analyzed the numbers, that growth was almost completely concentrated around games featuring Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese games. Without those players, saw tiny increases at best, and in lots of cases, actually went down compared to previous years. Unrivaled thought they could bottle that magic without actually having the players who created it. That was their biggest mistake. You can't market star power you don't possess, and no amount of advertising or slick production can create interest in players the audience doesn't want to watch. Now let's talk about the business side, because this is where things get really nasty for everyone involved. TNT Warner Brothers reportedly paid serious money for broadcast rights to Unrivaled. The exact numbers haven't been made public, but industry people are saying it's in the seven-figure range every year. That's real money for a startup league. And what exactly are they getting for that investment? 100,000 viewers per game. Just to give you some perspective, infomercials regularly pull bigger audiences in those exact same time slots. 30-year-old sitcom reruns consistently outperform these games. TNT could literally broadcast static and probably get similar rating. This creates a credibility crisis for women's basketball as a whole. When leagues crash this spectacularly, it reinforces every negative assumption about women's sports not being commercially viable. It gives weapons to everyone who claims women's basketball can't support professional leagues without massive financial losses. And the really frustrating part is that's not even accurate. Women's basketball absolutely can draw audiences. We literally just watched it happen. But it can only draw audiences when you have the specific players who actually move ratings. And those players chose not to be part of Unrivaled. So why didn't they join? That's the question nobody wants to tackle. Honest. Caitlin Clark has never explained in detail why she turned down Unrivaled's offer. The rumors suggest she wanted her off-season for rest and didn't want injury risks before her second WNBA year. That makes sense, but there's probably more going on. Caitlin Clark is smart enough to see that connecting herself to a league that might collapse could hurt her personal brand. She's also smart enough to realize her participation would be used to sell the league to networks and sponsors, and she'd get blamed if it flopped. So she stayed away, protected her value, and let Unrivaled succeed or fail based on what they actually had. It's failing hard. And now the people who built their whole league on promises of star power they couldn't deliver are dealing with reality. Breanna Stewart's comments about viewer habits show another massive problem. The total disconnect between what the league's founders think they're offering and what audiences actually want. Stewart really seems to believe the problem is timing and familiarity, that if they just keep grinding, audiences will eventually get into the routine of watching Unrivaled games. But that's not how people consume entertainment today. People don't develop viewing routines around stuff they find boring. They have unlimited entertainment choices available instantly. If your content isn't immediately engaging, they disappear. There's no trial period. There's no learning curve. You either grab attention right away, or you lose it forever. Unrivaled isn't grabbing anything, and the second season performing worse than the first season proves that more time isn't going to solve this issue. The trend is going the wrong way. So here's the bigger question. What does this disaster mean for future women's basketball leagues? Because Unrivaled isn't the only alternative league trying to establish itself. There are other 3-on-3 formats, international competitions, and various attempts to create professional opportunities for women's basketball players outside the WNBA. The lesson from Unrivaled's collapse should be crystal clear. Star power can't be faked. You can't build a successful league by promising stars you don't actually have. And you can't manufacture stars through marketing if the underlying talent and charisma isn't compelling to regular audiences. This is actually great news for the WNBA. It means the league's established platform and history gives it a huge competitive edge. Players who become stars within the WNBA framework have a much tougher time recreating that success elsewhere. So the brand value stays with the WNBA. But it's terrible news for player leverage. One of the big selling points for Unrivaled was that it would give WNBA players other options and therefore more negotiating power with their main league. If players could realistically threaten to leave the WNBA for a competing league that paid similar money, that would force the WNBA to raise salaries and improve conditions, except Unrivaled isn't a realistic alternative. The money isn't comparable when you consider the loss of exposure and brand building opportunities. And now that the ratings have completely tanked, it's not even clear Unrivaled will exist long enough to be an option for future seasons. That leaves WNBA players exactly where they were before, dependent on one league for their professional careers with almost no leverage to demand better pay. The cocaine arrest is basically a perfect symbol for where this league stands right now. Someone was apparently so desperate to make an Unrivaled event interesting that they brought controlled substances, then so unwilling to leave that they tried to bribe a cop $5,000 to make charges disappear. That's not how people act at successful, thriving sports events. That's how people act at failing ventures when they're trying to salvage something from the mess. And that's exactly where Unrivaled finds itself. In full salvage mode. The question isn't whether the league can turn things around anymore, it's whether it can survive at all. And looking at these ratings, survival seems pretty unlikely. TNT executives have to be running numbers right now. They're paying 7 figures for content that draws 100,000 viewers. The advertising revenue from those audiences doesn't even come close to covering rights fees, much less production costs. This is a money-losing operation with no realistic path to profitability. So what comes next? Most likely TNT fulfills their contractual obligations for this season, then walks away when renewal time comes. Unrivaled either shuts down completely or tries to find some smaller platform willing to take a risk on much lower rights payment. The league becomes a warning story about the risks of over-promising and under-delivering, and the founders Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier have to accept that they sold networks and sponsors on a vision they couldn't make real. Their reputations take damage. Future projects they propose will face much more skepticism. They'll get asked the tough questions about star power and audience appeal that should have been asked before Unrivaled ever launched. The really sad part is, this whole disaster could have been avoided. If Unrivaled had been marketed honestly as a development league for WNBA players to maintain their skills during the off-season, expectations would have been realistic. Networks would have paid appropriate amounts. 100,000 viewers would have been acceptable for that type of program, but they swung for the fences. They promised a revolutionary new league that would change women's basketball forever. They suggested they had commitments from the sport's biggest names. They presented themselves as the future of the game, and they delivered 1 for 26 three-point shooting and cocaine arrests. That's not the future of women's basketball. That's a failed experiment that's going to hurt the sport by confirming every negative belief about its commercial potential. And the people responsible for this failure are the same people now on television, making excuses about viewer habits and timing. So here's what I want to know from you. Should Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier face consequences for misleading networks and sponsors about the star power they could actually deliver? Because this wasn't just optimistic projections falling short. This was Dentonum misrepresentation of what the product would actually be. And lots of people made business decisions based on promises that were never realistic. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you believe I'm being too hard on the founders, explain to me how 100,000 viewers, for a league that was supposed to revolutionize women's basketball, is anything other than total failure.